I'm Michelle Wainwright, and welcome to Creative Juicy. I'm doing something different with the podcast today. Instead of introducing you all to a creative and interviewing them as I typically do, I wanted to take this episode to talk about a store opening that happened over the weekend in New York, which I think is relevant for culture today, especially in the world of social consumer brands and, in this case, fashion. As most of you listening know, Creative Juicy has a singular focus on creatives and entrepreneurial talent coming out of New York. I myself live in Brooklyn, and the reason I started this podcast was to highlight the amazing creatives I've met over the course of my career here in New York, working in brand marketing and strategy for a range of consumer brands. So, in this New York vein, I want to talk about a new store opening in Soho, the cultural impact this brand has had on consumers, and how they did it, how they got here, and also what you can learn for your own brand or business in terms of building brand affinity with your target audience. Now, this podcast is extremely visual, so I encourage anyone listening in, which I imagine is everyone because I've never posted a video of this podcast outside of clips. Head over to Spotify, search Creative Juicy, and subscribe there. That's how you'll get all video content from this day forward. And if you don't want to switch over to Spotify, I'll include the link to my YouTube in the show notes. So head over there. But please know that all of the visuals for this episode are pulled from Instagram because that is how I, as a consumer, experience the brand and gather these insights. So that's what I'll be pulling up on my screen today. Okay, so let's talk about Jacquemus, which opened at 143 Spring Street on Friday, October 18th. For some background on the brand, for anyone not as familiar, Jacquemus is a modern French fashion house created by Simon Porte Jacquemus. Now, the singular most valuable thing about Simon as a designer and head of his namesake label is his distinct vision. His collections and the Jacquemus brand universe he has carefully crafted is surrealist in nature, elegant and sophisticated, yet still very playful. The most interesting brands for me are the ones where there is distinct tension between two seemingly opposite qualities. Sophisticated and playful, in this example, you wouldn't expect to go hand in hand, but Simon strikes the chord beautifully. I read in an interview on Vogue Runway that when asked if Simon considered Jacquemus quiet luxury, he responded, "No, we are pop luxury, I think," because of the shoulder, the shape, the wrongness, and also the sense of humor, which is a quote that I love, and I think that's exactly it. I also love how he says the wrongness. His use of color is especially impressive. The hues he chooses and the way they're combined with his silhouettes are just so Jacquemus. His work is fresh, original, and you can also really sense his upbringing in his collections as well. Simon grew up in the south of France on a farm, and shortly after moving to Paris to pursue his passion for design, his mother passed away in a car accident. It was after her tragic death that he decided to create his namesake label, Jacquemus, which is his mother's maiden name, as a beautiful tribute to her and the women that inspire him. Now, I really started to become aware of Jacquemus probably around 2017, 2018, as he was the designer who was creating campaigns and imagery surrounding these very oversized hats. So oversized, it was a bit avant-garde in a way. It took you by surprise. Juxtaposed to the largest of the hats, the brand also launched these tiny micro bags. Again, it's the tension between macro and micro. Now, as someone who appreciates design and fashion and marketing campaigns, I'm drawn to visuals that I've never seen before, and Jacquemus certainly delivers on that. You can even see the invite he made for one of his runway collections with an ultra mini handbag. See, it makes you smile. Okay, so why does any of this matter? I first wanted to set the stage for how I was introduced to the brand from a consumer standpoint. And now, fast forward to the Soho store opening last weekend, which is the first stateside store for the French fashion house. And the crowds were insane. It's clear that Simon has really struck a chord with consumers through his creations and the world he's built. But something about seeing People line up for blocks to get into the store, crowding around Simon as he cuts the ribbon in front of the store doors just struck me. You would think people were lining up for Taylor Swift the way they were crowded around this Spring Street store corner. And it was a fashion designer from France who was not a celebrity in his own right before heading up his namesake label. Which made me think. Of course, Simon is a visionary. We've established that, and that is clear. But what got him here? What were the tools he used to propel his work beyond that of the fashion subset, to a level that even the most well known fashion brands don't experience today? I can't think of a single brand designer, not a celebrity, a designer from the beginning who gets this kind of reception when opening a new store. So, we're going to talk about why that is. Now, I wanted to take a look. The shopping platform list comes out every quarter with a list index of the hottest brands. When looking at the Q3 2024 list, let's see who we have here. Jacquemus is number 7, which sounds right. Jacquemus was founded in 2009. What other brands are here where the founder is still heading up the label? You, of course, have The Bro with Mary-Kate and Ashley Olsen, Victoria Beckham, Skims by Kim Kardashian. To me, all 3 of these brands sit in another category because as much as their celebrity founders invest and focus on these businesses and have built something very impressive for that matter, they're still celebrities and they had a huge platform to launch these brands from the first place. Okay, who else do we have here? There's, of course, Ralph Lauren and Donatella Versace, Muacha, how do you say? How do you pronounce Matcha Prada?
Mucha. Mucha.
Okay, Mucha Prada of both Prada and Miu Miu. But again, they're not creating this kind of fanfare with consumers today. Then there's Totem out of Sweden with Ellen Kling and her co-founder Carl. They as founders fly very under the radar and really let the brand they built speak for itself. I have to say, it is really incredible to see these newer brands mixed in amongst this subset of world-renowned heritage brands. Also, why is Chanel not on this list? But, okay, back to Jacquemus. How did he do this? So, there are a few key things I want to highlight about his social presence here. The first being how he used his runway shows to create brand moments. That might sound self-explanatory, like, of course, runway shows are brand moments. But Jacquemus takes it 10 steps ahead. This really became clear with his spring 2020 collection, Les Coups de Soleil, which took place amongst rolling lavender fields outside of Paris, along a hot pink runway. I remember seeing this imagery for the first time, and it just stopped me in my tracks. Or stopped me in my scroll, I should say. This was not only a moment for Paris Fashion Week and for the entire fashion community, but for Jacquemus as a brand on social. Simon continued this show-stopping work with his spring 2021 collection, which was an evolution of the lavender fields, but this time it took place on rolling wheat fields. Again, totally breathtaking. Looking at these aerial shots today, you would think they were created by AI, the way each guest's individual seat was cut out of the wheat fields. But no, this actually happened. Even the seats in one of his later collections here, the attention to detail is unmatched. Now, Jacquemus is not the first brand to create these incredible sets for his runway shows. Karl Lagerfeld spearheaded this for Chanel at the Grand Palais. There was that Chanel space station, the grocery store, and so many other incredible sets. Again, this is Chanel, which has been around for over a century. It was founded in 1910. So to see these kinds of worlds from a brand that was founded in just 2009 is really incredible. And it's not just the shows and the runways themselves. I would argue that that's not even the most impressive part of this equation. It's how Jacquemus uses these sets to create content in promotion of the collection, and hence create a moment. For example, the spring 2021 L'Amour ready-to-wear collections. Jacquemus shared a preview of what was to come simply by filming his runway models in the ambiance of the runway set. Now I'm going to click into it.
Yeah. Hey. Hey. Ooh.
Okay, I mean, doesn't that just get you hyped? And more recently, for Les Sculptures, Jacquemus created a video series where the celebrity guests from Kylie Jenner to Julia Roberts to Jack Harlow simply arrived on the platform and said bonjour.
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 Bonjour. Bonjour. These kinds of runway extensions allow for these collections to live far beyond the looks of the runway. I could share a million of these. Here is Emily Ratajkowski for Jacquemus's Fall Winter 23-24 collection.
Hello? I don't know where I am, but I'm going to the Jacquemus show. I actually have to go. I'm in a rush.
I love this example here where Jacquemus created a campaign for their show invitation with Kristen Davis. And the reason I love this next one is not because it's just another fashion brand creating a campaign with a celebrity going to their show, but this invitation narrative makes the viewer also feel like they are being invited to the runway show. I, as a follower of Jacquemus on Instagram, get to take part in this experience. Let's watch this.
Kristen Davis graciously accepts what appears to be her Jacquemus show invitation. Equipped with protective gloves, she reveals what appears to be a knitted V-neck sweater. The experience is satisfying. The sound of fabric neatly unfolding, knitwear being caressed, hiss, caress, hiss, the soft patting of hands. She embraces le pull, but secretly, it's much more than that. It's le pull sur les épaules.
Okay, so number one, using his runways to create larger brand moments. Two, I want to move on to something that is much simpler in form and also in budget, and that is the cinematic scenes that Jacquemus has become known to post to his social. This includes everything from biking with his dog in the south of France to obviously a more staged video of one of his photo shoots to behind the scenes of his La Bamba campaign. You even hear the photographer saying super in the audio here.
Voilà, super.
To driving in snowy Greece, which is a video he didn't even capture himself and he credited. These videos don't require any kind of budget. They're clearly shot on iPhone and they're beautiful. And something as simple as it is now feels very Jacquemus. Next, I want to talk about how Simon also used the Jacquemus brand account on Instagram as his own personal account too, speaking in his own voice. He'll post his Halloween costumes with his husband, selfies, tributes to his mother, his grandmother, a really fun making of post from an editorial shoot, his own reflections from Fashion Week. He also doesn't take himself too seriously, which I appreciate, and will share something like this just because it's Sunday and it feels right. This is an interesting topic because so many times I feel like it's even more strategic for brands and founders to live separately on social. It allows the brand to live on its own as its own entity, and the founder have an entirely separate account where they can share behind the scenes of making a collection, for example, and really give the audience more of a peek under the hood, if you will. Jacquemus just did it all as one, and I think it worked incredibly in his favor. because it allowed me, as part of the audience, to feel like I understood Simon more. His life, his musings, his sense of humor, his gratitude. He actually did start his own personal account in April 2022, which was, of course, well after his brand had gained traction and steam and momentum and huge fan base. So you can see even more about the designer now that they're separate, but that's not how it started. And I think that really worked for him. Okay. Now, my next point is in regards to what Simon has created beyond the collections and the runway shows, and even the way in which he shows up online. The brand universe for Jacquemus has no bounds. Everything the brand is involved in has their own signature touch to the very last detail. This applies for both the brand Jacquemus and Simon himself. Let's just take a spin through their new office they debuted in April of this year, which is completely to die for. There isn't a single detail that doesn't feel Jacquemus here. And then again, here's the humor element. It's always present. Simon also just released photos of his home in the south of France, and I wouldn't expect anything less. Okay, my next point. Creative for creative's sake. Jacquemus also creates content simply just for content. Now, it's a brand, of course. They're always pushing a product or a store opening or even just awareness to catch the viewer's attention, but it's approached with this humor and playfulness, which again is just so refreshing, especially in the fashion industry. You don't know what he's going to do next, but you do know it will feel unapologetically Jacquemus. Here are some examples, like this Double Trouble video campaign.
Long together. Don't tell me it isn't true. Two souls connected. No me without you. Wrapped in Napa leather, your body was oh so smooth. I knew it was attached after the first screw. You looked up at me in the finest faux leopard. Double trouble, baby. You're mine forever.
Just really beautiful editorial imagery, like this example. And then this Jacquemus campaign, which I believe is their way of telling all of us that you do pronounce the brand Jacquemus. I love this song. Now, a lot of fashion brands, their social looks like an ad. It looks like it was a full page spread in a magazine. And Jacquemus' social, of course, it's advertising for them as a brand, but it's so much more modern and fresh and just of today. It's entertainment. I look at this content and it makes me smile. Okay, this is my final point today, but this tension between oversized and undersized. I want to go back to something I mentioned at the beginning of this episode in regards to this juxtaposition. These oversized, like that hat, macro details, down to these micro moments like the little handbag. This theme continues across Jacquemus' work, whether it's the cover of Elle magazine shot with his beloved grandmother, or it's a store opening strategy which always showcases oversized moments in the cities where Jacquemus is showing up. Here's a giant postcard in Saint-Tropez highlighting Paris in honor of their new boutique opening. There are a few really fun takes of this also in Lake Como, arriving in Capri, and of course, last week in New York. Okay, so I've highlighted a range of things that I have witnessed and gathered, again, simply by following Jacquemus on Instagram, that I believe contribute to this level of fandom that was ever present at the Soho boutique opening last week. How Jacquemus shows up on social and shares his brand universe with the world has established his brand as one that transcends the fashion industry. I also want to note that the lines of people edging to get into his Soho store last weekend, those are not all fashion girlies. I would argue that the majority of people clamoring into that storefront are not looking to even try on the clothes. These are consumers who are craving a Jacquemus experience, which is one that's exaggerated, imaginary, lighthearted, and beautiful. They want to be immersed in his world and his vision and experience it for themselves. Okay, so what does this mean for founders and brands out there today who want to establish a relevance and a brand affinity with their consumer? I think there are some key takeaways here that anyone can apply to their own social and brand strategies, and you do not need big budgets to do so. So, first and foremost, what is your signature? What do you share continuously that can become synonymous with your brand? For Jacquemus, I highlighted these cinematic little video clips shot on iPhone. Nothing happening except the waves splashing up against the beach or the dog's ears flying in the wind. This is simple. It's a video where nothing moves except the subject and the natural surroundings around them. But now it's Jacquemus. Even people who follow him on Instagram may not realize that, but when you see something like this and you're familiar with the brand, they now go together. So, what can that be for you? Determine what that is and post consistently. That doesn't mean you're sharing a cinematic video in this example every day. Please don't. But make sure you have markers in your calendar where you showcase that kind of content. 2, does your brand have attention that can create an interesting POV? I explained how Jacquemus strikes the balance between sophistication and humor, elegance and play, macro and micro. So, are there certain brand characteristics you've built into your brands that can create something that feels especially unique to you? And then lastly, if there's anything Jacquemus has proven, is that you should stick to your vision and be relentless in seeing it through. Be detail oriented. These moments that make me smile as a consumer are all about the details. So don't settle until it's exactly as you envision it. Of course, within reason. Okay, so that's it for today's episode, my first video podcast, and also my first solo pod where I deep dive into a topic I think is relevant for brands and creatives today. I would love to know what you all think about this. If you want to see more of it, less of it, if you want me to highlight certain brands specifically, please drop your comments on this episode or feel free to DM me on Instagram. And yeah, thank you for joining.